figure out who the Speaker of the House is. Okay? It's not on my list of shit that needs to be done. Can you really blame them? If you don't give them something to believe in, you shouldn't expect them to have the interest to try to gain that education about that country or politics in that country. And politics for me is kind of it's almost a waste. It's almost a waste to get involved in it. I think it's just important to know what's going on in your country as far as political action. Forget about the rest. Forget about the rhetoric. I mean, it's almost a waste because what's going to happen? Are you going to have your mind changed by the New York Times, you think? Are you going to have your mind changed about American politics if you dig into some history or some civics books? You want to pull out some of those old 6th grade textbooks and catch up on what you might have missed? Yeah, I don't think so. I think we're pretty well defined by what our friends tell us, what our peers tell us, what our coaches, our teachers, if we have teachers and decide to listen to them, our parents, our family members. We don't listen to people like me, talking heads that do fucked up podcasts about nothing, that turn out to be something usually, I must say. And then we adopt those ideas if they sound good to us. But the question is, why do they sound good to you? What I would ask you to do, fellow American especially, but worldwide citizens also, is to make sure that the mechanism by which you take in information to your brain and process it and decide to commit it to medium and then long-term memory is a strong mechanism that is full of logical and reason-deciding strengths, full of it. It will not let bullshit come in to get processed. It immediately discards it. It takes the maybes and puts them on a little side plate, a back burner, but doesn't throw them away. And it takes the pretty well sures and files those motherfuckers. To do that, you have to know critical thinking. I'm not going to preach on that this show. Find a website that you trust or a book that you trust and learn critical thinking skills. This is going to help you get through the bullshit. And bullshit is where most of the fight is happening today. And it's happening between the major news networks who want to tell their audience, their current demographic. They're not even looking to pick up new brains. They're just giving their current line of people they're dealing their drug to their daily fix. That's what they're doing. They want to maintain. So you either need to pick many news sources to try to get an accurate picture from the mosaic of bullshit that you're going to get, or you need to learn critical thinking, and then you can just get away with just a few. If you learn critical thinking, you're going to end up discarding stories from sources that you formerly trusted if you don't know critical thinking yet, because you're going to realize when you're being bullshitted or when they're presenting fact where there is no fact, but maybe just some evidence of something, like the recent headline where they said, this new astrophysicist disproves Einstein's theory, right? And the only thing she did was introduce a couple of new questions about black holes. The headline lied. There was a recent story about Harrison Ford's plane crash. Harrison Ford seriously injured. NBC News did it. Seriously injured in plane crash. What'd you find out? A few scratches on his face, right? I believe that was all. Maybe he had a broken ankle. Who the fuck cares? They lied. Seriously injured means your ass is in a coma and your nuts are in your ear. That's seriously fucking injured right there. His nuts weren't in his ear, as far as I know. He might have put them there. He's Harrison Ford. He can do whatever he wants. But, I mean, I think he was flying a pony anyway. So if you fly a pony, you're badass. That's pretty much established. That's a P-51 Mustang. I'm not sure if that's what he was flying. Listen to free radio, says Kim. And this is free radio. You're listening to it right now. Right now, I said. But we're not done talking about the dumb. We got more dumb to come. Gotta figure this dumb thing out. I look at my European friends. I look at my Australian friends. I look at some of the African people that I've heard speak on YouTube videos, and they sound so eloquent. They speak so well. What is it that's different about them and Jay-Z? What is it? I think there has to be an interest that is academic in nature, a genuine scientific questioning of how the world works, or a motivation that is of an emotional source, one in which, as I indicated before, where you might take pride in your country and then become interested in how your country operates. If you don't have either of those, if you don't have either one of those, you're on Jersey Shore. That's your destiny. That's where you're going. Enjoy. You probably get some dollars from it. That's what's happening with you. The thing I like about knowledge, good knowledge, is that if I ever fall into a hole when I'm walking through the forest, or limping in my case, I'll have shit to think about. Seriously, I could be fully occupied just thinking about shit. Well, is that what Bruce Willis said on Armageddon? You guys are NASA. You sit around thinking about shit. And you got people sitting around behind them, backing them up, thinking about shit. So, yeah, you know, thinking about shit is important. Ask NASA. Speaking of NASA, climate change is real. Climate change is on an unnatural pattern right now. Whether or not man's causing it or not, I don't really care. I just think we need to figure out a way to keep the parts per million down to 450 or below of carbon particles in the atmosphere, and I'll leave that at that. China wants to have its cheap coal industrial revolution. They're saying, America, you had yours, we want ours. You're going to have to pay us off if you want to use clean energy. You know, that's a bad... Hi, Apocalypse. Apocalypse, Aaron, Kim, still in the chat room, have not fled yet. I'm sure Blake and Jade have gone on to do better things there in England, and I wouldn't blame them. Paul Dembski made a quick pit stop by, but I think he's trying to catch up with the first place driver right now. And I'm going to continue on with our attack on the dumb. We got to attack the dumb. If you are not in some way uncomfortable with the level of dumb around you, and you live in America, I want to know where you live. Because unless you're in like a very wealthy neighborhood loaded with PhD grads, I don't think you're probably satisfied with the general education direction of Americans. It's not looking good for us. And what is it? What is it? Is it gaming? Gaming is addictive. I could say gaming probably has something to do with it. Is it just apathy? I mean, is it some belief that we're invincible as a country and we don't need to know anything? How can we spark curiosity, like the gentleman said in the interview, in a Sputnik kind of way, in an exploratory, exciting way to get people wanting to learn and read again? I don't know. I didn't know it was this bad until I started reading some reports on it, and it's just really sad. But there's more to it. Now, you know I like to pick on everybody. But I have a clip here, and don't get offended because we're going to pick on the Democrats too, but it is called Republicans Say the Darndest Things. And the reason I picked this was actually the second episode. I didn't pick the first one, is because of the intensity of some of the stupidity in this particular video. And what I'll do is I'll play that, and I'll interrupt it here and again, but I need to keep this show on track, and that is going after the dumb. And that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to do it with you. I want you to do it with me. Feel free in the chat room to point out dumb Democratic things. If you feel a little intimidated by this, if you're a Republican, don't. I'm going to pick on the Democrats as well. We have stupid in every party. We have stupid in every fucking party, folks. And but it's important to be careful, because here's the king of all words when you're listening to my podcast, my show. Context. Context is king. You cannot take sound bites and destroy someone with them. All right? So what Sarah Palin could see Alaska from her house? So what Barack Obama said he had been to 57 states? He meant cities. These are little slip-ups. All right? They're little slip-ups. What's scary is when it is indicative of a larger lack of or misunderstanding. And you look at this person who's in a very professional, high-profile position, and you say, this person has missed out on much of the basics. And if they have missed out on much of the basics in education, do we want them in a position in the front seat of the car of our country? Or would we like them to sort of chill out in the back seat and wear a seatbelt and a helmet? Because, you know, seriously, John McCain's always got a Band-Aid on. I like him, but he's always got a fucking Band-Aid on. What's that about? That nigga's getting in fights. I know he's in Fight Club. He'll tell you he's not. I know he's in a fucking Fight Club. And Brad Pitt and him beat each other's ass every weekend. Because Brad Pitt's always got where the fuck? You know, I mean, who else is in the Fight Club? I want to hear your guesses in the chat room while we play this. Who all is in the Fight Club? Who all do you know that wears a Band-Aid too much? And what the fuck is wrong with these people? Let's figure that one out. Now,
Art Linkletter and the Kids. Join us for 15 minutes of unrehearsed, unpredictable fun with children. With the Pied Piper of TV and radio, the people are funny man, Art Linkletter.
Hello there. I've been talking to people on radio and television for 19 years, and I found that the most interesting and the best interviews are with ladies over 80 and with children under 10. And for the same reason, they tell you the truth. Without fear or favor, they answer any question you want to know. Yes, for fresh, spontaneous, unrehearsed interviews, you can't beat the kids. So let's go in and talk to them.
We know there was slavery that was still tolerated when the nation began. We know that was an evil, and it was a scourge and a blot and a stain upon our history. But we also know that the very founders that wrote those documents worked tirelessly until slavery was no more in the United States.
So now there's one other person that we played of all the presidential candidates. Michelle Bachmann also surprised some of you. Tell me why.
She just, she's new on the scene pretty much, and she's rising.
Well, she articulates very well her points.
Tell me, why did Michelle Bachmann, and you guys are Sarah Palin people.
I'm a Chris Christie fan, but I like her because she's walking the talk. She's walking the talk.
Yeah. Like Newt, Michelle Bachmann knows what's broke and she knows how to fix it. So those two together are going to be powerful.
There's an out-of-the-box solution coming from both of these candidates. They're thinking about things from the free market, from the real world, not the government world.
Yeah. I think if I'm looking for a female Republican, I like Sarah Palin. She's more polarizing, which is her deficit. But Michelle Bachmann counters that, and she has grown in favor for me.
Republican Paul Ryan has suggested sharp cuts in Medicare and Social Security. Are you willing to make cuts there?
Well, I think we know that just within a day or so, the President of the United States will be taking a trip over to India that is expected to cost the taxpayers $200 million a day. He's taking 2,000 people with him. He'll be renting out over 870 rooms in India, and these are five-star hotel rooms at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. This is the kind of over-the-top spending.
At $200 million a day.
Have you ever seen the president? Ever seen the president go over for a vacation where you needed 34 warships? $2 billion. $2 billion. 34 warships. We are sending... He's traveling with 3,000 people.
But the idea that you're going to take 3,000 people and you're booking over 500 rooms in a hotel and you're taking 40 airplanes.
$200 million
a day.
200 million?
A day. No president has ever anywhere close to 40 airplanes, 3,000 people, 500 rooms in one hotel. And that's just one hotel for a 10-day trip, $200 million a day. It's never been done before.
$200 million. $200 million each day on security and other aspects of this incredible royalist visit. 3,000 people, including Secret Service agents.
I will take the liberty this time of dismissing as absolutely absurd this notion that somehow we were deploying 10% of the Navy, some 34 ships and an aircraft carrier in support of the president's trip to Asia. That's just comical. That's just comical. Nothing close to that is being done.
Let's remember, the war in Afghanistan costs, according to the Congressional Budget Office, about $190 million a day. So the idea that a president's trip might cost more than the war in Afghanistan, that just doesn't make any sense.
Now remember, these are Republican caucus voters, so they're expected to be skeptical of what the president says. But the reaction was so negative, so overwhelming. What's the problem?
I believe that Barack Obama's religious beliefs do govern his foreign policy.
And what are his religious beliefs?
I believe that he is a Muslim.
You do?
Yes.
How many do you believe that here?
Yes.
How many believe? Wow. You believe he's a Muslim?
Yes.
And you think that's having an impact on what he says and does?
Fundamentally, yes.
Absolutely.
Jack?
Yes, I do also.
Now, do you understand the implications of what you're saying here, what the media is going to say about this group and about Iowa caucus voters in the future? You realize what you're opening up here?
David, Beverly Hills, Florida. What do you mean when you refer to the tides, when you asked about the existence of God? Science explains the tides, the moon's gravity pulls on the ocean. Okay, how'd the moon get there? How'd the moon get there? Look, you pinheads who attacked me for this, you guys are just desperate. How'd the moon get there? How'd the sun get there? How'd it get there? Can you explain that to me? How come we have that and Mars doesn't have it?
The reason we're in the mess we're in is because our so-called leaders in Washington no longer view the indispensable principles of our founding as truly that, indispensable. We're supposed to have limited government, low taxation.
One of those indispensable principles is the separation of church and state.
Okay, with that, very good dialogue. We appreciate that. Let's though move on so we can get to all the panelists and cover a number of areas. Chad Lodge, from the newsroom, please, if you could ask that question, please.
Where in the Constitution is separation of church and state?
Let's have some respect for the panelists and the questions they brought.